Welcome to Let's Face the Facts, the rewatch podcast for the classic sitcom, The Facts of Life. Join us each week as we synopsize, analyze, criticize, and ultimately idolize the show. And now, here's your host of Let's Face the Facts, the wonderful David Almeida.
Thank you, Matthew Arter. Welcome back. It's another week, another show. Thank you for downloading and pressing play. So, this week we're taking a short, unplanned hiatus from Season 8 because Matthew and I just have a lot going on right now. It's kind of a little unexpected, but I won't go into all the details, but we're just very, very busy right now. I'm actually recording this intro on my phone from a covert location behind the scenes of a major theme park, which shall not be named. But God forbid you don't have our dulcet voices in your ears each week, so we thought we'd give you another peek at an episode of TV Talkaholics. This is the additional podcast that Matthew and I do every month where we discuss some sort of TV show or movie that is facts of life adjacent. We've been doing it for a couple years now, and our Patreon supporters, whom we affectionately call our Tutti Fruities, get exclusive first access to this show. Eventually, it'll be widespread released someday. I have no idea when. I haven't made plans yet. But last November, you'll recall, we released an episode where we discussed the TV movie High School USA. That was episode 135. Gave you a little taste, and now we're going to do it again. So there. If you like what you hear, you can have access to the entire TV Talkaholics library, as well as future episodes at the $3 a month level. Your sponsorship also gets you a shout-out on the show. Speaking of which, I have a new Tutti Frutti to shout out. Welcome, Daniel C. What's up, Daniel? Thank you so much. Daniel, thanks for the support. You now have access to all of the aforementioned, and it is my pleasure to welcome you to the family. So, now, on to this week. Let's journey back to June of 2020. Matthew and I got together with Paul Padilla to discuss Charlotte Rae's memoir, The Facts of My Life. Please forgive the sound quality. It was in the early days of the Zoom calls and the Zoom recordings. We've ironed out a lot of the kinks since then, so hopefully it will not affect your enjoyment of this lively discussion. And I say let's get to it, huh? Here we go. Enjoy TV Talkaholics, Episode 7, Charlotte Rae's The Facts of My Life.
So.
No. More about gel coat.
When the fourth...
Don't you call in the... More importantly, he knew what he was talking.
My name is David, and I am a Talkaholic.
Hi, David.
Oh, my name is Matthew, and I am a Talkaholic.
Hi.
Hi, Matthew.
Hi, Matthew. Okay, wow. We'll keep working on that. Well, okay. Anyhow, welcome to the show. It's another month. It's another 30 days that we've been sequestered from all of society. This is still the quarantine times during the wonderful COVID-19 pandemic that we are living through and permeates all of the art that is produced at the moment.
Wow, we're starting at the bottom, aren't we? We can only go up from here, aren't we? We're Talkaholic. Hi, we mess up the opening, and it's like, welcome to hell.
it's
Jesus. Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Matthew and David Show.
Yeah, woo!
As I like to call it.
There we go. Well, whatever you want to call us, and people have called us many, many things over the years, this is another installment of TV Talkaholics, and I think, Matthew, it might qualify as a very special episode, wouldn't you say?
Really?
We have
What makes it so special?
We have a guest with us. We invited
Oh
someone.
my God, who?
He's on your screen on the Zoom. You got to look on the screen.
Oh, I was only looking at me. You can see other people on this?
We do have a special guest with us today, joining us all the way from the wonderful state of Texas. It is Mr. Paul Padilla, ladies and gentlemen.
Oh, I'm honored to be here. Am I your first guest ever, or is this like
this is the first
seconds?
time Matthew and I have had a guest
Oh,
on
sweet.
Talkaholics.
Was that believable?
Awesome. Yes, I am honored.
If that was believable, David has oft told people they were the first.
Oh. Well, it's been so long right now. I've technically, my virginity has grown back.
Road in hell, you had a stamp made.
I wish, God, you have no idea how much I wish that were true. So welcome, Paul. Good to have you.
Hey, thanks. I'm really happy to be here. I feel honored.
You are in the Texas. I am in beautiful East Orlando, and Matthew is in beautiful. Where are you, Matthew?
I am in beautiful Lake Buena Vista.
Mm-hmm. Lovely. But our distance physically cannot prevent us from providing you with a powerhouse of entertainment of another monthly installment of the show. And we're actually going to do something we've been talking about for quite some time. We are going to be discussing Charlotte Rae's book, her autobiography, her memoir, The Facts of My
Life.
So, Paul and I had discussed this way back when, that we were going to be listening to the wonderful audiobook of Charlotte Rae's memoir, The Facts of My Life. We thought it'd be fun to do a TV Talkaholics, like a book club meeting. So here we are. We've all read up. We've read the book. Matthew,
Yeah.
What was your favorite part, Matthew?
Oh my God. I really liked the beginning. And there was a bunch of stuff in the middle that I liked too.
Uh-huh.
But then, the ending really brought it to a close, I thought. It's really good.
Wrap that shit up, yeah.
That was a really big twist at the end.
Did you get a chance to read or listen to the...
Yeah, completely.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm on board. Woo! Let's take this train.
So where do you want to start? What about the book?
Yeah.
What surprised you? What was interesting to you about the book?
Well, I know what my favorite thing was. I'm interested to know what your favorite thing was.
My favorite thing.
Yeah, because I already know my favorite thing.
Okay, well, let's just start with just throw out some random littler factoids. Let's not go into any of the long stories. First things first was that Charlotte Rae, she had two sons, and her older son was severely mentally challenged.
Was his name Andy? Was that his name?
Andy.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Yes. So she had put, I'm reading a quote here. Autism was still a big mystery to everyone, including people who were supposed to be experts. Andy never really fit any autism diagnosis available at the time. He showed signs of autism, and he was clearly cognitively impaired, as well as epileptic and schizophrenic, including auditory hallucinations. So she said his condition, he was a dual diagnosis, I think is the term they use for that. So he was, I think, to put it mildly, a handful. So it surprised me how much of her life and of the book is her talking about their struggles with raising Andy, with finding care for Andy, with finding doctors or specialists who could work with him to try and improve, and how she worried so much.
You think of her when you see her in these series like Car 54, Where Are You? And all these things as being, fun and zany and All in the Family and just the funny comedian that she was. And then you have to go home and stress about your child, and you have to stress about, all that kind of stuff. And it's amazing. You see what actors can do. You never know what's going on in people's lives. I always say that about people that you work with in a show, on a daily life. You never know what people are thinking about. So, that was one thing that I was always amazed that she was able to deliver at work and then go home and raise her children.
And deal with that. And there was a time he was in, for lack of a better term, an institution, what was, I think, called a mental hospital of the time. But it was she was heavily involved. It wasn't like they locked him up and threw away.
No,
They
it
were
was heavily involved. And I remember one of the things that she said when they first finally found a doctor to really like analyze and look at her son. She said she was so relieved because he told her that he really believed that he was autistic, and she heard artistic. And she was and she was so relieved. She was like, "Oh, good! I'm so glad he's just artistic. Like he's just artistic." And the doctor was like, "No, it's called autism." But she said they didn't know what that was back then. They had no idea what they were dealing with. So but at first she was so relieved that he was just artistic.
Yeah, that was. He said, "Your son is autistic," and she was like, "Oh, thank God." It's like, don't think you heard me, honey. So, yeah, Matthew, what did you think about that? The whole thing about her and her son.
Well, I thought a lot about it.
Mm-hmm. You had a lot of thoughts and feelings, sir?
Yeah, a lot. I thought I closed the book for a minute and thought about it.
Okay. So you actually read the book, that you had the physical book to open and close?
Yep. Autographed. She was a dear friend.
Wait a minute.
Man, I wish I had one of those.
No, but first thing that I thought was you don't know what she had just dealt with when they said action.
Yeah.
It's amazing that she could do what she did.
Yeah.
There's no sign of any angst in her.
Oh, no. And the book, of course, obviously, that was beautifully exemplified in that first opening passage that starts the book. The one, Matthew,
Yep.
the one where she actually starts with her walking down the hallway of, that's what I said, of the institution. And saying that she had just gotten a frantic phone call because Andy he was having a fit or, an episode or something, and he had been breaking things and throwing stuff around. And she was like, I think this was the early 70s. I think it was when she was on Sesame Street. So she's like, I got to go back and be the fucking mail lady on Sesame Street. And that is the perfect thing about that and she starts the book with that, which I think is fascinating. That it's like the first thing out the gate is there was shit going on, people, and I was dealing with it. Though surprisingly, she doesn't wallow in it. And I will say, Paul, you can confirm this. She spoke of nothing but affection for Andy. You could tell she loved him.
Oh yeah.
Every breath of her body and soul. When she mentioned having a chubby little baby at home, and even as he got older, when she was talking about, he loved eating and having steak and lobster.
But she even went in to talk about, the things that you have to deal with as a mom of a teenage boy. Like he talked about, masturbation and how she had to kind of deal with that situation with someone who doesn't know that you're not, you know what I mean? I'm just saying, Matthew, relax. But and then having to deal with girls, and he had a little girlfriend, and then they'd have to. I think she came over one time to visit for the weekend. And
she does talk about at one of it was like a camp or one of the schools Andy went to was in the basement of a church started up by a pastor who had a special needs son himself. And she talks about how he ended up befriending this young girl. I think her name was Rhonda. And they clearly liked each other. And so she was like, he's clearly getting to be that age. And I think they'd like to spend more time together. So she called the girl's mother. Mm-hmm. And they had a conversation, and she was and she said, do you think Rhonda would like to come here for Thanksgiving? You guys can come over and all that. And so she said, I was trying to broach the subject of sex, of, we need to think about how far do they want. Matthew is making lewd and lascivious gestures right now. But what ends up...
We've all been in quarantine a very long time, people. That's all good.
So, Matthew, here's the fun anecdote, which I'm sure you remember reading yourself. But here's the thing. She really grew to like and be friendly with this girl's mother. And she was such a dear, sweet, warm, compassionate woman. Her name was Edna. And when
Yes.
Charlotte Rae was cast in the role of Mrs. Garrett on Different Strokes, it was one of the directors, I think, who said, okay, well, what are we going to call the maid, the housekeeper? He's like, I had a housekeeper growing up and her name was Mrs. Garrett. So she's Mrs. Garrett. Mrs. Garrett never had a first name until they were developing the character for the spinoff. And she was working with them, she said, I want her to be named Edna. I want her first name to be that. And she never told them why. But then she later told the woman, she's like, guess what? I named her after you. And the woman was like very, very touched by that. So
and I love the story. I mean, I'm sure you've talked about it before, but I love the story how she did the All in the Family thing which I've never seen. I need to see. I mean, I've seen All in the Family, but I don't remember the Tupperware episode that she talks about all the time. And then, Norman Lear was doing Different Strokes. And then she was like, I can't get out of the CBS contract. And he was like, I'll bet you a nickel. She always says that in every interview. I'll bet you a nickel I can get you out of that. They owe me a couple of favors because they had like Sanford and Son and stuff, all this other stuff that he had worked on, and so he got her out of her CBS contract to do Mrs. Garrett, and I always thought that was cool that he stepped up for her and he was like, don't worry about it, I got it.
Yeah, she did The Good Times and she did All in the Family, and those were the two things that put her on his radar. And
those were good shows, y'all. Those were good shows. I remember even as a kid, I remember thinking these are good shows. As an adult, I go, these are. Yeah.
Matthew, did you ever see the show, the All in the Family with Charlotte Rae, the Tupperware Party?
I'm sure I have. I'm just thinking like how fascinated I was when I was reading that story.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I
bet you have a paper cut, don't you, Matthew, from that page?
Yeah.
It was so good.
But I remember thinking like, I wonder what that phone call was like. Like, did Norman Lear just pick up the fucking phone and go like, boop, 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 boop? Or, well, no.
He would have done this. He would have done telegram.
And then whoever picks up the phone here, this is Norman Lear. I want to talk to Bill Buttlicker, and head of programming or head of contracts. He's like, hey, I need you to let Charlotte Rae out of her contract. And they're like, yes, Mr. Lear. Whatever you say, Mr. Lear. Like, what the fuck did that? Or was he like, I'll give you this? Or did he have to wheel and deal? Or was he just fucking Norman Lear?
Because they said at the time that she was wanting to go to Different Strokes, that CBS was kind of developing for her a sitcom where she would be a female sheriff, like in a Western. Like, she's the sheriff 30 years before. Remember She's the Sheriff? Yeah. With Suzanne Summers. Yeah, but it was like where she was going to be a sheriff and she was like, ugh, it sounds horrible, but luckily she got.
Yeah, and what had happened was they had her under contract because of the Beans of Boston, which was the American Are You Being Served? They had her tied up in that contract where it's like, okay, if this doesn't get picked up, we want to use you for other stuff. And they said she could do spots in other places, but she couldn't take a whole series. And that was what the snag was when Different Strokes came a-calling. But Norman Lear, Matthew, I think that's what the phone call was. At CBS, I mean, he literally ruled that network. They had all the top 10 shows, as we've gone over many times, and CBS was dominating the ratings because of his stuff. So pretty much he just called someone and said, hey, that Charlotte Rae, you've got her under contract. I really want to use her for something else. So can you let her out? I'll bet you that's all it was, really.
And that fascinates you, that kind of power.
One thing that last night when I was trying to refresh my memory, I started watching some YouTube videos of just her being interviewed. She had mentioned that in that Tupperware episode that Carol O'Connor was not there because he wasn't in the episode because he was holding out for more money in his negotiation. So she didn't even work with him, but she had a great time working with Gene Stapleton. Yeah.
Yes. And that's the thing. I believe, I was asking Matthew if he had seen it. I believe at the end of that episode is when Edith gets the phone call saying, Archie is missing. Like, where you thought he wasn't, and that other place where you thought he was instead, he's not there. Like, we don't know where he is. And that was the show trying to see if they could do All in the Family without Archie.
You can't, because they did the Archie Bunker's place and Archie's place and all that afterwards.
Just like, can we do Valerie without Valerie Harper?
Wait, they can. For like 3 years or something.
Can I say since you brought up the fact that they named that character Edna, I found it interesting that they ended up with a character named Andy on the show.
Yes.
And I have to wonder if she had something to say about that. Like, because he was kind of a son figure to her, kind of became like a son figure. And I think if she had stayed,
yeah,
it would have been her instead of Beverly Ann that adopted him, I think. Don't you?
I feel like that's where they were probably aiming.
But
I don't think she specifically mentions, because the Andy years were really not, there wasn't that much of an overlap. There's also Beverly Ann, Mrs. Garrett's sister, is named for Charlotte Rae's older sister, Beverly.
And that's what else I put. That she had a sister named Beverly.
Yeah. And Beverly, who was a bitch, according to Charlotte. Well, you remember that part, Matthew?
Yeah.
Charlotte was the middle child of 3 daughters. And so the young one was like the pretty princess baby. And Beverly Ann, she always talked about being kind of her older, hypercritical sister, who had also gone to Northwestern and studied performance and was supposed to become a singer, but then she thinks she didn't have the courage or the guts to actually go for it. So she went back to Milwaukee, got married, and started a family, and strongly encouraged Charlotte to do it too. Like, Charlotte Rae was even kind of like, really? She couldn't fulfill her dream and she was trying to take mine away also? And it's like, ooh. Over the years, they did reconcile a bit. They had a nice time when they all went to Paris, or The Facts of Life goes to Paris. But what other family stuff did you guys pick up on about her family and her growing up and her rearings? About her formative years?
Take it, Matthew.
I always love the story of, like, Dad was a tire salesman, and like, I am also fascinated with how she changed her name.
Mm-hmm.
Like, somebody at a radio just told her that last name ain't gonna work.
Yeah, Lubach.
If you know what I mean.
That was so common in those days. Like, what was Tony Curtis's name when B. Arthur talks about it? It was like Ben Schwartz or something.
Bernie Schwartz.
Bernie. Hey there, my name is Bernie Schwartz. I'm a movie star.
Well, her real name is Bernice Frankel.
Bernice Frankel. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
But simply put, Charlotte Lubotsky, they were like, no, that's not good. Do you have a middle name? She's like, Rae. Goes, there it is. You're Charlotte Rae.
All of a sudden, you're a wasp.
Yeah, exactly. Can we pause 1 second? Matthew, are you in the bathroom?
What?
Are you in the bathroom?
I am.
Are you sitting on the toilet right now?
I am.
What's wrong with you?
Oh, no, I'm not pooping. Oh, my God, David.
You're sitting on the toilet.
Ew, David. I am changing my insulin pump thing, and it happens to be on my leg, David.
I'm sorry. I thought you were...
The very idea, David, that I would go through all of this setup to make you think that I was taking a dump.
Okay, I'm sorry. I doubted your judgment and your taste level.
Thank you.
Now, Paul, will you continue with what you were saying there?
God, I'm exhausted. Okay. No, I was watching a YouTube video.
Because I like to keep it classy, David.
Okay. Thank you, Matthew. So let's move on to another just interesting tidbits that were revealed in this book. The show, The Facts of Life, taped on Tuesday nights. And the way the week cycle ran was Wednesdays were the table read of the upcoming episode, so the week-long cycle. Wednesday was the table read of the new show. Thursday would be script changes. Friday would be trying the new scenes. She said Monday and Tuesday were the grueling days. Monday in particular, because Monday was the camera blocking day and all that. So that was camera day. So Monday and Tuesday were the long ones. But they would do 3 shows in 3 weeks and then have a week off. So they would only put out 3 shows a month. And that was because they started early enough in the season they could keep up with that. But
Yeah, and that was important to her. I mean, she liked that for her family and for her normalcy of her life, and probably was pretty good for the kids too to be able to have some time.
exactly, because
Away.
like she said, having a disabled son. And that's the other thing, is that in the days leading up to Different Strokes and the Facts of Life, basically leading up to the California years before she moved out west, she talks about how she turned down so much work because she wanted to be available for her family and she wanted to help out. And thankfully, her husband was a very successful music, what was the term she used? A music producer, music editor.
Mm-hmm.
He didn't compose per se. That wasn't his main thing, but he did do that. That was, of course, the wonderful, everybody knows as John Strauss. Let's talk about him a little bit, Matthew. Were you surprised about what happened and came to pass with the husband?
Oh my gosh. I could not believe it.
Were you as shocked as she was to be nudged awake in the middle of the night?
Probably more so. I mean, I've been nudged awake in the middle of the night, but usually it's met with, you got to get out of here.
Yeah. But we're talking to have your husband of 25 years tell you that now that he is sober and going to AA, which he gave her shit for when she got sober, because he still
Which we haven't talked about, which we need to talk about. But yeah,
we got to talk about the sobriety thing too. But anyhow, now he had just completed his fourth step. For those who don't know, the fourth step of the 12-step program is taking a ruthless moral inventory of yourself and of your faults, with preparation for going through people you have wronged. And then I think the fifth step is the actual making amends. But when he told his sponsor, I think I'm bisexual. I had a relationship, a brief fling with a boy when I was a teenager. And I went to my parents and asked them to get me with a psychiatrist to fix me. And they did. And I don't think it quite worked, because in recent years, I've been stepping out very rarely on my wife with other men. So the sponsor said, you need to tell your wife now. And it was like middle of the night. She was asleep and she was woken up with him saying, hey, honey, so funny thing. And then he told her everything. And then, typical man, he rolled over and went to sleep. She actually says that in the story, because the burden of finally saying this and forgive the expression, unloading on her, it was like such a relief. He rolled over and went to sleep, and she's like, I got up. I was like, I can't fucking sleep. And she ended up calling a friend and waking up this friend and going over to the friend's house, and that eventually they divorced, but they still stayed on very good terms. And thankfully, because Char, even though she was a girl raised in Milwaukee by pretty strict Jewish parents, she was very open-minded, thankfully, and didn't look up on homosexuality as being this awful thing and I gotta keep my kids away from you and shit.
Yeah, there was
show business.
There was a great interview with her, like I said, on YouTube last night, watching, where she was like in her last 6 months being alive. She was talking to a drag queen at an Actors Fund benefit that she was getting honored at, and she was holding his hand and kissing him and having a great time, and they were just having such a good time. And I remember thinking, that's great.
Yeah, so that's the thing with the husband. And then we had another sidebar there about her sobriety and about her drinking. Matthew, do you want to take this and talk a bit about?
See, here's the whole thing. It was the 50s. Everybody drank.
Mm-hmm. Martinis, not just like a glass of wine. It was like, let's have some martinis.
The reason it was called a Harvey Wallbanger, if you know what I mean. Especially in Hollywood. And let's just say it was Cary Grant's favorite drink.
Oh, the Harvey Wallbanger?
He would bang anything, including the wall. So it's like, I would imagine, and I was thinking, like, how much of a fucking drunk do you have to be to admit you have a problem in that time period? Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? When it just wasn't a thing. You came home, you drank till you went to bed, and then you got up and went to work, came home, drank till you went to bed. Yeah. And it's just, that's how life was, I feel like. Maybe I have a a different idea of how the 50s were, but you see those advertisements in Life magazine, they're basically selling alcohol to women and pills to women. Like, help calm your mood during the day. Yeah, have some downers.
But I mean, pregnant women had martinis and smoked cigarettes. I mean, it was a fine thing to do.
So, like,
it wasn't even a
I
thing.
want to know, because of that, I want to know how, I want to be a fly on the wall on one of Charlotte Rae's drunken nights.
Oh. It's where she said bull feathers.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I want to be there. I want to see what forced her at that time period to be like, I need to talk to someone.
Yeah. Well, it was in the early 70s. I feel like it was maybe around 71 or 72 when she was working Sesame Street. And it was actually a wrap party for Sesame Street that she called and found out where the nearest meeting was to go to her first AA meeting. And she does say, I wondered if I should include this in the book because it's supposed to be Alcoholics Anonymous. But she was like, at my age, I'm thinking it's more important to let people know I've gone through this and I'm in sobriety, I'm in 12-step program. And if it might help somebody, then she's like, it's worth it. But it was, when you think of the early, like being in the 50s, like coming up in the 50s, being in that crowd in New York, and then in the 60s, once the 70s hit, somebody once said the 70s were the hangover from the 60s.
Yeah, totally was.
So the party's over. That sense of, I imagine in the early 70s at that point, getting completely dog-ass pass-out drunk every day, partially because she and her husband drank together. They were drinking buddies, and it put a strain on her when she quit. And the other thing is that it was her escape and having a special needs child. I mean, that was literally something you could not escape from, and there was just no support or structure to help people with.
And that's what they would do with their evenings, she said. She would just, they'd come home, they'd get a couple of bottles, and they just tear it up, finish those bottles. I mean, that's what they did, you know?
Yep. So, Matthew, is there anything...
I read the book, David.
I know.
What's the book called again, Matthew? What's the book called again?
Called Charlotte Rae.
Ray of Sunshine, Ray of Light.
Says, hi, my name is Charlotte. Are you there, God? It's me, Charlotte. It was Charlotte's Web. Charlotte's Web.
Web of Charlotte.
Did you read Charlotte's Web?
That's what I thought we were talking about. Okay.
Oh.
And I was nervous because I didn't read the book. I watched the movie. So I was all ready with my Agnes Moorehead impersonation, my Paul Lynde, my Debbie Reynolds. For the time mother and father time. Oh my God. Somebody give Debbie a Xanax.
It's like Debbie Reynolds just hopped onto our Zoom call. That's amazing.
It says crunchy.
Well, perfect segue. Paul Lynde, Matthew, even though you may not have read this book, Paul Lynde, as we have stated many, many times, he went to Northwestern with Charlotte Rae. And
didn't Cloris Leachman go as well?
Cloris Leachman did too. Now, Cloris Leachman left after her sophomore year, as did their classmate and peer, Patricia Neal. So the two of them did 2 years and then were like, fuck this, we're getting work. We're going to New York. We're going to do this shit. And they did.
Oh, Paul Lynde. They were friends. They were
very good friends.
Did she talk at all about her theater career? Did she talk about what it was like to be, because she did Three Penny Opera with B. Arthur.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, she doesn't talk a lot about B. Arthur. It's like I think it's because it's a small blip because she didn't do it for that long. It was a short run because she left it very early. Because when she was already committed to starting to rehearse the Pajama Game for Broadway for George Abbott. And that was opening 2 weeks after Three Penny. So it was like she was going to have to be rehearsing one while performing the other. And her nightclub act was happening later. Yeah. She was exhausted. And I think she wasn't really quite conscious, Matthew, for the whole experience. And then the big and drunk, probably, yes. And then the other thing is that when she did get to, she says the run through, I'm assuming she means like a dress run through. The run through of Pajama Game, she had her script in her hand because she couldn't memorize her lines. And she was so embarrassed. And she says, to this day, I can't believe I was that unprofessional, but I was just at the end of my rope. And then at the end of the rehearsal, they came to her and said, we decided to combine your role with Carol Haney's role. And of course, this show was a huge Carol Haney triumph, and that's what made her famous. And so they said, you're welcome to stay in like a tiny role in the chorus and not have a song and just be basically a little nobody peon. And she was angry at the time. She was mad at herself, but she was also mad because theoretically it wasn't, well, it's because you're unprofessional, we're firing you. It was, we're making changes to the script and you're out now. And that really upset her. But yeah, so I think the anecdotes about Three Pennies, she just kind of glosses over the fact that B. Arthur and John Aston and other folks were actually in that production.
And the things that you remember whenever the shows that she did, you think of Three Penny Opera, you think of that kind of stuff. But the ones that she was nominated for, I really had never heard of. It's like Pickwick is one, and then Here and Now or something like that. But I had never heard of those shows. But she was nominated for Tonys for those two.
Yeah.
How did she talk about Little Abner? I
think it went on too long for her, I think. Didn't it?
Yeah, she didn't want to do it. It was one of those things that she didn't want to be away from the home and the family. And back in those days, when you signed on for a Broadway show, you were touring up and down the coast doing your out-of-town tryouts. So they'd taken her away from the family. So she, and I don't know if she had the other kid at this point, which is her son, Larry, with whom she wrote the book, Larry Strauss. But she talks about, she asked for too much money. She's like, I don't want to do Lil Abner. Thank you for offering. So she said, oh, tell them I'll do it for $750 a week. And the agent, I mean, that's a lot of money now, not in 1956. I mean, fuck. So she said, tell them I'll do it for $750 a week. She says her agent had to say, like, what did you just say, $750? And she said, and unfortunately, they said yes. They offered and agreed and met her rate. So she had to do it. But her big thing was, here's the funny thing. She said, I didn't want to do this cartoon comic strip broad comedy musical. She's like, I was a serious actress. I wanted to be doing Shakespeare and Shaw and Ionesco.
Do you know how much money that is in today's, like if somebody had gone to a Broadway show that you were not the star of?
Yeah. What is the equivalent number of dollars today?
$7,191
a week.
Yeah, that was a lot of money. But she does talk about how two people that were her buddies in that production were Edie Adams and Tina Louise. And
Tina Louise?
Tina Louise was in it. And she said Stubby K made a pass at her. And she said Julie Newmar, I think, was making more than she was because she was, I think she said Julie Newmar, they always joke, was the best paid because she was making the most per minute, because Julie Newmar was barely in it. She like has like a walk across the stage and just look fucking gorgeous moment. And Bern Hoffman, she said, was a jerk. She hated working with him.
Yeah, he was kind of a dick. He was
Did she give anything? Did she give any reasons?
He was always teasing her, mocking her line readings and ridiculing her and just picking on her and teasing her. Yeah. It's like, what the fuck, dude?
And she didn't hold back talking about how she did not like it.
Yeah.
Who would be such a jerk to make fun of Charlotte Rae's line readings?
Matthew, I'm feeling attacked.
Girls.
What do you say? I have no idea what you're talking about. But so this guy Byrne was a real jerk for mocking Charlotte Rae. And fuck that guy. So when they said good, like when the run ended or when she left or when he left the production, she actually said, well, it's been interesting working with you, and I hope I never have to do it again. She said it to his fucking face. And she says, thankfully, she never did. Try to think. Oh, another thing. So, Matthew, back to your other Broadway stage credit anecdotes. She talks about doing a play called The Beauty Part. Had you ever heard of this show called The Beauty Part? It's a play. It's not a musical.
Right.
And
no, but The Beauty Part was the name of one of my nightclub acts in when I was in Tijuana. But that was before the donkey died. So the main attraction was I could clear a billiard table without using a cue stick.
Okay. Well, thank you for that, for sharing. But the thing is, The Beauty Part, I couldn't find it doesn't even have a Wikipedia page, but you do see it like in the Samuel French. It's some sort of a tour de force show for an actor to play multiple crazy roles, and it was written for Bert Lahr. And this was in 1962. This is towards the end of his career. And she said he was difficult. He was always questioning things. He was always being kind of a pain. And they had one scene together. And she noticed he was kind of trying to physically upstage her. And she was like, what the hell? The director actually said to her, he's an old man. You only have one scene with him. Let him have the scene. So she said it ended up that she basically had the scene with him with her back to the audience. So he could do what he did. And she said it was fine. She had other moments in the show. And at the end of it, years later, she overheard someone had said to Bert Lahr, oh, I hear you work with Charlotte Rae or something. And Bert Lahr said, oh, yeah, Charlotte Rae. She's a wonderful actress. But it's like, yeah. Also in The Beauty Part on the Broadway, two people with whom she became very close, Larry Hagman. And by the way, nothing but overwhelmingly positive things about what a nice, dear, generous man Larry Hagman and his wife were. So his wife was not a generous man. His wife was a generous, well, you know what I mean. Yeah. And the other is, I think I fucked up, guys. Alice Ghostly. I thought Alice Ghostly went to Northwestern with them. I don't think to hear her talk, I don't think she met Alice Ghostly till 1962 when they did The Beauty Part. But she said they became her chums and she really enjoyed working with them. But
that's a lot of stars for a show that nobody's ever heard of.
And here's the thing. There was a newspaper strike that hit just when the show opened. So they couldn't get any press out. There was no ability to put out ads and press and get reviews published. So the show ended up closing way too early. But you are not wrong for looking at that and going, wow, that is weird. So at the same time she was doing The Beauty Part in 1962, this is also when she was doing Car 54, Where Are You? Because that was filming in New York City. So she would do those during the day and then do the show at night. And in fact, her husband, John Strauss, wrote the theme song to Car 54. So she also had that.
Car 54, where are you? Yep.
She was on like 11 out of 60 of the episodes. And she almost got to be Matthew. It was down to her and the other actress to play Fanny Brice's mother in the original Funny Girl on the Broadway. Whoever the other actress was, it was like down between her and Charlotte. And Charlotte wanted to do it, and they were trying to negotiate the salary, and then Kennedy was shot. So that kind of, everything kind of blew up, and there was a question of whether the show was going to happen and all that. And by the time they kind of got back to it, they had already locked in the other one, and so she missed out. But then her response is, oh, well, more time to be home with the family and my boys. Come Back, Little Sheba.
Yeah.
That was hers. And that's the one where she tells the story. This is the great example of the kinahora, the evil eye in the Jewish culture, where parents are ever afraid to draw positive attention towards their children for fear that they will be punished. Or
you have that in the Mexican culture as well. Yeah.
Now
my mom will get mad at me.
Now I've heard the title Come Back, Little Sheba, but I'm not familiar. I don't know the play or seen it. Have you ever seen it? Are you guys familiar? Is there
Yeah,
any?
but it wasn't Shirley Booth. Wasn't it big for Shirley Booth as well?
That's what it is. Charlotte Rae
Yeah.
stepped in for Shirley Booth after
Right.
Shirley left the original production. That's what it was.
Yeah.
And when her mother came to see the show, she said she came afterwards backstage and she said, basically, like, she said, like, you were fine. And then proceeded to praise all the other actors, complain about where her seat was, complain that the side that she was on was making a crick in her neck bad. And it was all
Oh
that
my
stuff.
God.
It wasn't till years later that her older sister, Beverly Ann, said, you know, Mom loved seeing you in that. She said, watching it, it was after the first 20 minutes, she forgot it was you. Like, you were
Mhm.
that good in it. And that's what Mom told. And Charlotte Rae's like, well, she never told me that she thought I was that good. But that's the culture. That's the
Yeah.
thing.
I didn't realize Charlotte Rae and I had the same mother.
Oh, we've discussed. Oh, bless.
Yeah.
So let's start to sort of wrap this up and bring it back to the real reason that we're here is the facts of life. And I did transcribe some of the passages here from
Very short chapters, by the way. I wanted a lot more than she put.
Matthew. I see the judgment in your eyes.
It's like you're gonna read some Psalms or something.
This is like scripture chapter and verse here.
But when it was over, I wanted more. I will say that. But
It was I was okay because
I wanted a little bit more.
She speaks slowly, and it was 11 hours.
I,
1.7 speed. I was like, this is good.
no,
Some
I
of
was
it
doing a show
1.5.
an hour away. I was doing a show in Sanford, so I had an hour there every day and an hour back. So I listened to it in real time. But yeah,
No, I couldn't. I had to speed it up. I recommend 1.6 for those listening to the Audible book on the Audible app. So here's what she wrote. I'm not going to do the voice. By the 5th season of Facts, which is where we are right now, I dreaded going to work. I cried in the summer when it was time to start up another season, but I didn't want to leave the show until I was sure the girls could succeed without me. Maybe they were ready after the 5th or 6th season, but I wasn't sure, and I didn't want to be selfish about it. Meanwhile, we managed always to do some good work. I worked with whatever the writers and producers gave me, always. Tried to get the most out of every moment. I tried to make every line, every beat, every reaction specific and meaningful. You know what they say, there are no small parts. How ironic for the star of the show to be reciting that. I'm glad I stuck around to work with the girls a little longer. It wasn't always easy. And sometimes I found myself feeling like a patient old horse, but it was worth it.
yeah. I mean, she made the money, but yeah, she said she was not fulfilled anymore, and and was.
But how she's being marginalized in her own show.
And you can tell in the show, she'd pop in and say a couple things and pop out, pop in and say a couple things, pop out. And then all of a sudden she would go home to visit her sister, and she'd be just calling in for one scene on the phone, and it's just
because the older sister was back home in Milwaukee, and then I think the younger one was married with a family in Texas, I want to say. And so now regarding her when she actually did leave, she says, she already had talked about she wanted artistically to do other stuff, which is why she did a PBS movie, Words by Heart. She did The Worst Witch in 1986.
Which people love. I've never seen it, but people talk about it all the time.
I've seen most of it, but it was a little rough to get through. I got to try again.
Well, but one of the first things she did was the California company of Into the Woods.
Oh, that's right. That was after.
Was it after The Worst Witch?
Yeah, that was.
I thought it was
Facts of Life.
No, I'm saying it was right after Facts of Life. Didn't she go do Sondheim Into the Woods?
Yeah, she did. Yes, absolutely. Yeah. Okay, so I'm going to read another passage here. I needed to do other things, other work and travel, and more time to just sit and enjoy life. More time in my beautiful backyard with the orange blossoms and the birds and Andy's wind chimes. But by then, I knew the girls could carry the show themselves. I really had become expendable. I don't mean that in a bad way. I was proud of the girls. They had really emerged. We were an ensemble cast now. The network and the producers, however, did not believe in my expendability. And I guess they assumed I was holding out for a big payday. And that's what they offered me. And the way she says it, a lot of money to stay. It was tempting. I won't lie about that. My friend, writer Everett Greenbaum, urged me to stay with the show. He said, get every nickel out of it. And I understood what he meant. Most of us only have one chance to make the big money, but I'd already made enough. For me, it was never about getting rich. I just wanted to be able to keep my house and afford to plant new flowers every spring and get around in a decent car and travel a little and leave something for Andy and for Larry and his family. I had all that, and no amount of money was worth the pressure and anxiety of a network series. Not anymore, not at 60 years old, with so much left to do in my life.
That's awesome. I love that. I love
it was a nice little send-off for herself as far as why she
Mrs. Garrett. Yeah.
Yeah. So Matthew, what else about what else about the book do you wish you might have read about before we wrap this up?
Oh, I would like to see, and they are not on YouTube because I have searched. I would like to see bloopers from the Facts of Life.
Oh my God. I totally agree with you. That's
one of my things. I like to, when I find a sitcom that I like or a show that I like, I will type in for bloopers on YouTube.
Yeah, that's right. They are not out there. There's nothing on the DVD set that I can see. The DVD.
And I think that's a shame.
I agree. It would have been fun to see them like laughing and cracking up and putting up. Matthew, you know what? It's been fun. I think we've done it again. I think we have created yet another classic. I think that every single episode of TV Talkaholics is going to go down. It'll be like the Golden Girls of podcasts, where each episode is so superlative that you can't determine which is better from the other because they're all just so amazing.
Yeah.
But well, let's do our little sign off here. And the book, we highly recommend it. Listen to it. 1.6 speed. Cannot stress that hard enough. Listen to it. It's called The Facts of My Life by Charlotte Rae and Larry Strauss, which is her son. And on that note, we have to say our goodbye and thank you.
Well, and if you're not going to read that book and you accidentally just watch the movie of Charlotte's Web, let me highly recommend the original with Debbie Reynolds, not the remake that they did most recently. It's not as good.
The Dakota Fanning.
Yeah.
Julia Roberts as a CGI creepy ass spider face spider.
Yeah. Not good.
It's pretty scary. So
can I tell you just one story real quick that I always liked?
Sure.
My friend Ryan in Los Angeles. I went to school with him in New York, and he moved to Los Angeles. And in the early 2000s, maybe late 90s, the story already, that he did a show with Charlotte Rae in Los Angeles. And she was, it was like just a show that she did. And the picture that he posted upon when she passed away was her in a barrel. She was laughing inside of a barrel. And it's a show that they did together in LA. And he said that he drove her home every day. And she was just so sweet, so young, and he was probably in his 20s. He was probably 24, 25 at the time. And but she would drive her home every night after rehearsals. And at the very, very last performance, he drove her home, and she gave him a card. And inside the card, she just thanked him for listening to her stories and being her friend for the show, and a check for $500 to pay for gas and stuff, because she knew that he was a young, struggling actor in LA. And he just thought it was cool. And he posted about it when she died with the pictures of them, he dropping her off. So anyway, I thought that was really sweet. So I thought that was a nice story, something to have,
That's delightful.
Part of Charlotte.
No, she definitely, you can tell that she's one of the good eggs. She's one of the generous people and all that. So
thanks guys for allowing me to be a part of your televisionaholics.
Televisionaholics, sure, we'll go with that. Thank you, Paul, so much for being our guest, and thank you for talking about the book. And it's been fun. It's been great seeing your face again. And instead of our normal send off, I'm thinking maybe a better ending finale to the episode. I think we need to hear some more of Debbie Reynolds and Charlotte's one. I think we need to hear some more Debbie Reynolds, and we'll sign off on this. Watch
Mother Earth and Father Time. Mother Earth and Father.
Thank you, Matthew. It was beautiful. On that note, thank you. This concludes another TV Talkaholics. Tune in again next month. And thank you all for being our Tutti Frutti Patreon sponsors. We love you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thanks, guys.
Let's Face the Facts was created, produced, written, hosted, and edited by the wonderful David Almeida. Our theme song was beautifully arranged and recorded by Ned Wilkinson. Please visit FaceTheFactsPod.com for supplemental photos and videos, links to social media, and ways that you can support the show. And don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review. This is Matthew Arder saying tune in again next week for another thrilling episode of Let's Face the Facts.